Didn't care about me. He never did.
It's Gino for you.
He said it out loud, without flinching. While the cameras were rolling, Matt looked straight at Jasmine and told her there was someone else. No warm-up, no softening the blow. It was fast, brutal, and way too calm. For a second, you'd think he was reciting a grocery list. Jasmine froze. Her jaw didn't even drop. It just locked. Like her whole face forgot how to move. She blinked once, and then the sound that came out wasn't a scream. It was something worse. A kind of whisper sob, shaky and broken, that barely made it past her lips. What do you mean? But Matt didn't backtrack. Didn't stutter. He just said it again. He'd met someone. He wasn't sorry. And no, this wasn't new. He'd been seeing her for a little while. That phrase alone felt like a knife, because it confirmed the worst. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was calculated. Jasmine's eyes darted offset, as if someone, anyone, might stage a do-over, yell cut, edit this out of existence. But the crew stood motionless. Every lens was locked on her. No script, no help, no second take. She stood still for exactly 5 seconds. Then everything hit at once. Tears, breathlessness, confusion, rage. It wasn't cinematic. It was messy. Makeup streaking, fists clenched, knees buckling as the weight of the betrayal dragged her down. Producers shouted to cut. Someone reached out instinctively to grab her, but she pushed them all off. She didn't want comfort. She wanted a reason. But Matt didn't give her one. He just watched. His arms crossed, face strangely blank, like this wasn't the same woman he'd once said he wanted to build a life with. That woman didn't exist anymore. Not to him. In the middle of that chaos, camera wires, gasps, people frozen in disbelief, Jasmine collapsed to her knees. Not dramatically. Quietly, like a person who'd used their last ounce of strength just holding back from screaming. For the first time since joining the show, she had nothing. And Matt stood a few feet away, talking about needing to do what's right for himself, as if self-growth now came with an exit plan from responsibility. The scary part? He wasn't yelling. He didn't look guilty. He wasn't angry. That calm made it so much worse. It's easier, somehow, to process betrayal when it's messy and loud. But his was cold, methodical, almost rehearsed. Fans watching later would rewind this moment a dozen times, thinking, wait, was he planning this before the cameras even rolled? Was this real? Or performance? Meanwhile, Jasmine was unraveling on a level no one on set had ever seen before. A veteran sound guy was overheard saying they'd never captured something this raw, this close. She kept asking questions that didn't matter anymore. Who is she? When did it start? Did you use our money to fly her out? But the answers never came. And Matt didn't flinch. He had made peace with the damage before he dropped the bomb. The crew had to stop filming, not because of Jasmine's breakdown, but because no one could even frame the shot anymore. The energy shifted. The air was thick, claustrophobic. One producer whisper called for a medic. Another tried to clear the area. Jasmine, shaking, her hands over her face, had one phrase she kept repeating under her breath. I gave him everything. Everything. Love, time, trust, exposure. She'd risked her image, her old relationship history, her dignity, for a man who just torched it all in front of the world with the emotional engagement of a traffic report. And the way he stood there, casually explaining how his feelings changed, as if this was a scheduling conflict and not a public dissection of a woman's heart, told the audience everything they needed to know about who walked into this with a plan and who walked in with blind trust. A trust so deep, she didn't feel the ground moving beneath her until it cracked wide open. She thought this was the crash, that nothing could hurt more than this moment. But she had no idea. Matt leaving wasn't the gut punch. That was just a teaser trailer. The real pain? The one that would follow her even after the filming stopped? That was still waiting right around the corner. The cameras may have stopped, but Jasmine's meltdown didn't. She couldn't breathe. Her chest heaved, not from crying, but from pure panic, like her body forgot how to function without him. They moved her to a private room. Someone handed her water she didn't touch, and the sobs kept grinding out of her like they didn't care she was being watched. Eyes red, dress wrinkled, lashes barely hanging on, she looked like grief and humiliation had punched her straight in the soul. Behind that locked door, everything fell apart. Nobody was mic'd up, but you didn't need audio. There was a rawness to it, even from behind a closed lens. She was pacing like a caged animal, picking up her phone, putting it down, picking it up again, unlocking it, staring, then throwing it across the room like it betrayed her too. Outside that door, Matt was already halfway reclaimed by social media. Not 30 minutes after walking out, his Instagram lit up like a victory parade. A blurry dinner table photo captioned with a winky face, a tagged location in Miami, a story clip flashing just enough of a woman's hand over a wine glass to make people scroll quicker. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't respectful. If anything, it felt deliberate. People noticed. Fast. Comments poured in. At first, most pointed their pitchforks at Matt. The usual, "You're heartless, she gave you everything, can't believe you did her like that." But then, the pendulum shifted. Faster than Jasmine could process it, the backlash started ricocheting toward her. Old clips of her and Gino resurged. Threads dissected her past behavior. Well, she did Gino dirty. She's always been calculating. It didn't matter who started what. In this moment, the internet was eating both alive. Only Jasmine didn't have the strength to hit back. Crew members were stunned. Half of them had worked with her since season 1. They knew the real Jasmine wasn't the high-maintenance diva she looked like on TV. She was dramatic, sure. Emotional, absolutely. But at her core, loyal, committed. She gave relationships her whole heart, even when it didn't make sense. That's what made this sting harder for those behind the scenes. One assistant producer said Jasmine begged them not to air the entire breakdown. Not because she wanted to look good, but because she couldn't bear having everyone see her that broken. But TLC was never going to cut it. This footage wasn't staging. It was ratings gold. The network wasn't blind. They saw what they had, and they saw exactly who the audience would obsess over when this hit screens. Jasmine's DMs turned into a war zone. Most messages were cruel. Some mocked her. Others sent screen recordings of Matt's new girl's TikToks. A small group of fans begged her to stay strong, reminding her they still had her back. But none of it mattered. Not to Jasmine. She was drowning and scrolling at the same time, clinging to pain like it was oxygen. She started going backward. Not in action, but in mind. She'd scroll years deep into her messages with Matt, looking for clues she missed. She stared at old screenshots where he called her his forever. Reread the ones where he promised her a child. She zoomed in on emojis like they meant something now. She pulled out voice notes and photos of surprise gifts and long calls, looking for cracks. Evidence. Proof that there had to be more in between. There wasn't. Only evidence of a woman who fell in full, and a man who walked away in silence. She didn't sleep, barely ate, barely showered. And when producers checked on her, she tried to look fine, but the mascara residue under her eyes from 2 days ago didn't lie. This was not a PR storm. This was real devastation. The kind that sticks. The kind that writes itself into your muscle memory. And still, with everything shattered around her, Jasmine did what broken people always do when they're still holding out hope. She picked up her phone. Not to text Matt, but to call someone else. Someone she thought would still be there. She stared at his name for almost an hour before tapping it. Jasmine had scrolled past every contact that didn't feel safe. every person who'd blast her with told you so, and landed on the one man who, despite everything, once said he'd love her no matter what. Gino. The familiar ache surfaced the minute she saw his name. Not because they had some fairy tale love. They didn't, but because Gino represented something Matt never did. Stability. Predictability. The kind of guy who wore socks to bed and mapped out their mode together. The kind of man who, love him or hate him, never walked away without letting her speak. She hit call. No answer. So she called again. Still nothing. So she texted. A long one. The kind you write and reread 3 times, hoping autocorrect doesn't ruin your desperation. Then one more. Even longer. Then the voice note. Her tone was all over the place. Angry, teary, apologetic, begging. She didn't even know what she wanted. Forgiveness? Comfort? A soft place to land? What she needed was someone to pick her. But when Gino finally picked up an hour later, it wasn't the quiet embrace she remembered. His voice wasn't warm, not even familiar. It was stiff, controlled, and unforgiving. He let her talk. At first. But somewhere between her apology and asking if he'd ever just talk to her again, his tone shifted. You didn't love me, he said, voice flat. You loved what I gave you? That sentence alone could have ended the call. But Gino wasn't done. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't bitter. He sounded like a man who had stood in silence too long, replaying the humiliation he once tried to swallow. Like all those memories that Jasmine had tried to box up as the past, he had been living with them every day since she left. You broke me, he whispered. She tried to interrupt, but he talked over her, steady and factual. Broke him on national television, made him feel small, dumb, unwanted. And when she walked away, he stayed quiet because he thought she was happy, that maybe her new guy was the one. And that would have been enough. But the second he breaks your heart, Gino added, now I'm useful? Nah, Jasmine. Not again. Then silence. She waited, heart racing, for something, anything. A sigh, a breath, a maybe, we can talk later. But nope. Click. Line dead. One heartbreak broke her. The next one buried her. Now she wasn't crying. She couldn't. Even her grief hit pause, stunned by the finality in his voice. Gino hadn't cursed. He hadn't shouted. He didn't throw accusations like daggers. He just told the truth. His truth. And walked away with the quiet calm of someone who's no longer interested in cleaning up a mess they didn't make. That call hit harder than Matt's confession. Because, with Matt, at least she could tell herself he was cold. A cheater. A liar. But Gino? Gino had every reason to come in swinging. And he didn't. He held up a mirror, played it back to her. No edits. She sat alone in the same spot for 3 hours. Just frozen. Her phone screen dimming until it blacked out. Notifications piling in that she didn't read. What could anyone say after that? There was no you got this message strong enough to combat the reality that both of the men she had given herself to were gone. One by choice. One by necessity. Jasmine kept tracing the last message with her finger like it was going to change. But it didn't. Gino was done. Matt had already replaced her. And all she had left was this tiled kitchen floor, the cold hum of silence, and every single version of herself she lost in both relationships. Jasmine wasn't holding on now. She was hollow. No one to run to. No one to perform for. Just her. The echo of words she couldn't take back. And the very real cost of walking away from the one person who, for better or worse, truly tried to stay. Jasmine thought maybe there was still a way to control how this moment would live online. After the phone call with Gino, after nights with barely an hour of sleep and meals untouched on room service trays, she reached out to TLC producers. Not to block the footage, but to ask if they could soften it, maybe fade out the part where she sobs into her hands, or cut away before she repeats why would he do this. 12 times in a row. Maybe they could end the scene not with her collapsing, but with her standing. Strong. Wounded, but not wrecked. It wasn't about ego. Not anymore. She knew she couldn't erase what happened. But she hoped the network might choose empathy. Maybe they'd remember all the drama she brought when it served the show ratings. Maybe they'd honor how invested she had been in carrying this whole storyline. They told her they'd take it under consideration. That's TV speak for. It's already locked. TLC didn't cut a single meltdown moment. They didn't blur the tears. They ran the entire breakdown, raw, unedited, up close. 6 uninterrupted minutes of crumbling confidence, pleas for clarity, and a woman realizing in real time that everything she thought she'd built had already been bulldozed behind her back. They framed it as honesty. We're showing real love, real loss. But the cameras didn't feel neutral. They felt greedy. The episode aired. And fans did what fans do. Some watched with heartbreak, calling it the most brutal moment in franchise history. Others posted knife emojis and said she deserved it. Screenshots from old seasons popped up. Moments where Jasmine screamed at Gino. Clipped arguments used as proof that now she was getting what she gave. Karma came fast. One comment read, "Season-long villain turned victim? Nah." At first, Jasmine tried to stay above the noise. But silence weighs more when you're already cracked. She started going live late at night. Rambling, defensive, vague posting without using names. So many fake people around me. Everyone thinks they know, but they don't know anything. Long pauses. Unfocused eyes. Filter on, but nothing behind it. Then DMs leaked. Screenshots where she vented at random viewers, sometimes lashing out, sometimes apologizing, and then deleting the messages minutes later. Her timeline became a pressure cooker. Everything was either too calm or too chaotic. A blurry selfie, captioned "Healing in Silence," would be followed hours later by a quote post that read like an attack. Real ones don't leave when it's ugly. Viewers took screenshots. Reddit threads piled up. People debated whether Jasmine was spiraling or manipulating. But what nobody argued about anymore was the damage. Backstage, insiders said producers were watching her closely. In interviews, crew members described her looking zoned out. People had to remind her to eat. She had dark circles no makeup could hide, and she'd repeat the same questions as if searching for a different ending. TLC didn't entirely ignore what was happening. They reportedly offered counseling, a PR advisor, and told her to step back from the internet. But stepping back felt like letting go. And Jasmine, no matter what, wanted the last word. The problem was, while she was trying to rewrite the narrative, someone else was already doing exactly that. And they weren't asking for sympathy. They were making moves. Quietly. Boldly. And until this moment, you probably forgot they were even part of the story. But now, the spotlight was tilting. Not toward Jasmine. Not even toward Matt. While Jasmine was still stitching herself back together behind blackout curtains, Matt was busy becoming something else entirely. Single, smirking, and very online. No cooling off period. No reflective post. Not even a fake apology pin for PR. Instead, boom, new profile picture, new girl, new vibe. He'd gone full rebound mode and made sure everyone could see it. Photos started leaking. First, from friends, then mutuals, then Matt himself. Candlelit dinners, blurry mirror selfies where only her hair was visible. Captions like "right energy only" and "good things find you when you're real." It wasn't subtle. He wanted people to know he was fine. Thriving, actually. And most importantly, done with Jasmine. Fans initially weren't sure what to think. A Loud section thought he'd been cruel but honest. At least he didn't cheat, someone posted. Then, the bomb dropped. A message thread surfaced from someone connected to his new girlfriend, showing she and Matt had allegedly been texting while filming was still happening. Dates aligned. Emojis matched. One message even hinted, "When are you finally done taping all that nonsense?" Suddenly, the narrative flipped. Hard. People who had defended him were going quiet. Others started drag threads, calling him calculated. Some questioned if he even liked Jasmine at all, or if she was just his ticket onto the show's bigger platform. "This man just speed ran a breakup storyline for airtime," someone posted. Reality TV villain arc unlocked. Even cast members started reacting, carefully. One posted a cryptic tweet. "Some people fake therapy growth just to escape real accountability." Another wrote on IG, "Watching people clap for themselves while hurting others is dark." Nobody dropped names. But fans didn't need help connecting dots. Behind closed doors, TLC insiders said the mood had shifted fast. At first, producers were unsure whether to frame Matt's final arc as a justified exit, a man leaving a tough relationship to find something healthier. But now that timelines weren't adding up, now that fans were peeling back layers, they weren't so sure anymore. Matt, for his part, didn't flinch. If anything, he doubled down. He liked tweets that shaded Jasmine, posted new couple photos with captions like, "Unbothered over here." He responded to DMs with heart emojis. It was giving PR control dressed in casual detachment. He wasn't hiding. He was performing. And oddly enough, the more the audience turned on him, the more visible he made himself. The man who broke her had already built a life without her. He was no longer the guilt-covered ex. He was positioning himself as a leading man. Confident. Healed. Moving on. And while Jasmine's breakdown reran in raw, tragic loops, Matt's new beginning looked calculated, even celebratory. But not everyone was buying it. The show doesn't forget easily. And TLC doesn't like when a storyline feels manipulated, especially when the audience starts catching it first. Matt may have escaped the emotional wreckage, but he'd forgotten one thing that the franchise always proves. Season after season, no one gets the final edit except production. And while he was busy curating his next influencer moment, what he didn't know was that producers were already reevaluating his screen time, rewatching footage, and rethinking who the audience should care about most. If Matt thought he'd won this season, he hadn't met TLC's next move. Reddit exploded before the episode even finished airing. Live threads turned into war zones as fans dissected every second of Jasmine's collapse, Matt's poker face, and the eerie calm Gino kept while delivering the one-liner that silenced her. It wasn't reels or trailers making waves. It was screen recordings. People sharing clips so raw you could hear Jasmine's voice tremble beneath her breath, begging for clarity while Matt stood there, borderlining robotic. On Instagram, the hashtags surged. Hashtag Jasmine Heartbreak, hashtag Matt the Villain, hashtag Gino won. Influencer commentary accounts did their breakdowns within hours. Some cried for Jasmine. Others accused TLC of exploiting mental damage for views. A popular recap page posted, "This isn't reality TV anymore. This is televised emotional decay." Comments racked up in the thousands. Sympathy, mockery, denial, rage. And in the middle of that noise, Jasmine disappeared. No stories, no likes, no comments defended. She wiped her feed. Archived every photo with Matt. Erased everything but one random quote she'd reposted in black text on white, "I lost myself loving you." It was gone within a day. Deleted. Almost like she regretted admitting what everyone already assumed. TLC didn't hold back, though. The episode re-air didn't have a single edit removed. They included the entire 6-minute breakdown. They let the silence breathe. They let the camera linger. Each tear, each breath, each unanswered question. The cutaway of Jasmine in the corner, whispering "I have nothing left," with zero background music, struck harder than any drama montage ever could. Fans were split down the middle. One half said TLC went too far. Profiting from a person's real time collapse wasn't brave. It was cruel. The other half said it was about time the show stopped sugarcoating what these relationships do to people when pride and loyalty meet manipulation and fame. Some thought Jasmine was finally understood. Others still blamed her for ever leaving Gino, and that, ironically, is what made it impossible to figure out where Jasmine goes next. Would she walk away completely after becoming a case study in what emotional exposure looks like on national TV? Or was this the kind of fall that TLC loves to build a redemption arc around? She'd start silent, come back later in the tell-all, own her mistakes, reclaim herself. The structure already lived in dozens of reality show blueprints. But Jasmine didn't play by structure, and sources close to the show said she wasn't answering production's calls. Not yet. Meanwhile, Matt moved like nothing had happened. Dates, dinners, gym selfies with captions like "Peace is luxury." Posts about growth with zero mention of the woman he left sobbing on his way out. But fans weren't buying it anymore. His likes dropped. Comments flooded with snake emojis. People started unfollowing. And reportedly, one of the cast members unfollowed both TLC and Matt days after the episode aired. A silent protest that said everything, without a single caption. Whatever Matt thought he'd gained by going full soft launch with his new romance, the cost was piling up. Not just in fan loyalty, but in quiet tension behind the scenes. Producers aren't tone deaf. When viewers turn that quickly, that loudly, they listen, especially when the edit they ran starts painting the ex-boyfriend as almost sociopathic by comparison. And then there was Gino, not reposting memes, not subtweeting anyone, just living his life. Quiet carousels of family dinners, a gym check-in, photos with his dog, zero drama, zero flexing. And yet, the internet crowned him the unexpected winner of the entire disaster. He walked away with dignity, refused to accept someone else's mess, and didn't hang around waiting to catch the emotional shrapnel when it blew up. Gino didn't just survive the season. He walked out of it upgraded. Jasmine, on the other hand, wasn't just heartbroken. She was exposed. Everything had been laid bare. Her past with Gino, her loyalty to Matt, her public collapse, her attempts to make it right, all laid out, time-stamped, memed, and distributed across online platforms by fans and haters alike. For the first time in years, she wasn't in control of her image. She wasn't the tempest anymore. She became the collateral. And whether she comes back or walks away completely, this will be the storyline that defines her character beyond the screen. And Matt? For someone who clearly wanted the last word, he forgot a basic rule of reality TV. Characters you love to hate still need depth. And by the end of episode 24, all he had left was the impression of someone who planned his exit like a brand deal and threw humanity out with the set lights. But the final shot of episode 24 isn't about them at all. It's about who won and who survived. With Jasmine stripped down, Matt cast in cold steel, and Gino quietly walking away with fans in his pocket, questions remain. Did TLC push it too far? Will Jasmine reclaim her narrative? Can Matt really bank on a future in reality without the sympathy card? And what happens when the viewers start rooting for the outsiders instead of the main cast? Because this story's not done unraveling. And if you thought this was the end of Matt and Jasmine's chaos, wait until you see who shows up next